Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thanks for staying up late with us tonight on a Thursday. It is a school night. I guess if school still exists, I don't know what it does for you right now. But I'm here to interview our guest, Phil LaMarr, man of 1,000 voices. I think that actually might be undercounting. I checked the IMDb page, it was extensive.
How you doing, Andres?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I know I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home, so I'm doing that.
Yeah. And
Uh,
can you hear me okay? You everybody hear
I
me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Let's check chat, everything. Oh, look, yeah, everyone's good. So I guess we're no technical issues at all. This is it's such a relief. So,
Don't
um,
jinx us.
right? No, but speaking of working from home, a lot of voice actors have like at home setups
Mhm.
for recording auditions, recording whatever sort of comes your way at home. Has
Right.
has this has this unprecedented situation affected your work schedule or your recording time?
Well, actually, I'm really lucky because a few years back, I converted the top of the garage into a recording booth, which I didn't really need. I was basically using it for auditions. Before that, I had been in my kid's playroom closet, and nobody really said, "Oh, that's so much better." They didn't care. But now I look like a genius because I actually have a microphone and a soundproof booth, and you know, and we're not using them for auditions now. Now we're using them for jobs. You
Wow,
know, I was just today working on an animated feature. You
really?
know, so from here, it's weird, but it's cool because cartoons are one of the few, show business things that can still go on. You can't do a play without an audience. You can't shoot a movie because how's somebody going to put makeup on, Brad Pitt from 6 feet away? All you makeup people out there who have enormously long arms, now is your time.
Finally, my calling. um, so that's you're recording in your kid's play closet. So did you build this yourself? Are you handy in that way, or did you hire some folks
No, no,
out?
no.
Or?
I had to have people come in, and which is good because it's actually pr- you know production professional quality.
Wow.
It's not just you know a bunch of robes in the room. So that has worked out. But I mean, and for auditions, it doesn't matter as long as they can hear your voice clearly. That's fine. But now, when we're actually doing stuff that's supposed to go out for broadcast, everybody's had to step up, which is not always that easy, you know.
Yeah, um I just I'm gonna take something back for a second.
Yeah.
You've got your setup now that's professional. It's in the garage above your garage. It's not in a kid's playroom.
Right.
Um, but you're a family man. You've got
Mhm.
obligations at home. Um, but you also come from a family. You're from LA.
Right.
What was you? I this sounds crazy. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. You went to Yale.
Yeah.
I've been trying to process that since I first started like learning about the creeping on you on the internet. Um, what was the driving factor that pushed you towards Yale as opposed to staying out? Like what sent you to Ivy League?
um I don't know. I auditioned. I mean, I applied to a bunch of schools because I knew I liked acting. I'd been doing plays since junior high, you know. Um, and so I was looking at places that had some sort of reputation, in the drama realm. I
Mhm.
looked at USC, Carnegie Mellon, Northwestern University. Um, and honestly, back in the 80s, I got into Yale and was like, why did you pick Yale? It's like, because I got in. I mean, it it wasn't a very well thought out decision. And back then, it didn't. My mother was the first person in her family of eight to go to college.
Mm.
You know, So we didn't have this whole like, well, let's go visit all the campuses.
Right.
I never saw Yale till I showed up for my first day.
Was it a culture shock? I mean, you're going to Connecticut all the way from LA. Like LA is pretty diverse and Connecticut is not as diverse.
Right. Well, New Haven was pretty diverse.
Okay.
You because New Haven was a black town,
Mhm.
So I was able to go get my hair cut.
That's such a struggle. Oh my God. Sorry, I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta, so like, you find a barber you never let go.
Exactly. And back in New Haven in the 80s, when we got there, New Haven was called the seventh poorest city in America. Like 500, and then down at the bottom seven.
Ooh.
So you went to Cracktown to get your hair cut, but you needed your haircut.
Yep. So what was the experience like being so you're at Yale, you're getting your hair cut in Cracktown. You're probably code switching a lot. Like
Oh yeah.
I imagine because when you're getting your hair cut, you're talking one way, while you're at school, you're a different way. Did that impact sort of your performing style or performances? Do you think that have some kind of bearing on maybe your ability for accents or ear for accents?
Um, no, I'd always had that. I mean, and also I'd been code switching, since I was 10, because
Yeah.
my mother's from Arkansas, our family is from Inglewood. We moved out to the North Valley, which back then the diversity was us and a family that people thought might be Jewish. That was it. So I was used to looking around, taking it in, observing, blending in, and I do think that, I don't know which came first, whether my ear for accents and stuff helped me be able to fit in whatever, arena I was in, or whether I was comfortable falling into those things because I could, oh, I hear everybody is talking like, yo, everybody talking like this. Oh, everybody's talking like this, whatever, and it's in the long run served me really, really well to
Mm.
be able to tell the difference between voices, rhythms, what's because that's the real difference of voice. Although people think, oh, this is a black voice. Not every black person has a deep voice.
Right? Kevin Hart doesn't have a black voice. Chris Rock doesn't have a dark voice. A
Right.
deep voice.
Yeah, Chris Rock does not have a deep voice.
It kills me you can
Everybody
do
who
that.
says he does is crack. Is on their crack.
But so to me, it was always about like just connecting with people wherever they are and finding, and I think voices are a way into what people are trying to say.
Mm. Yeah. No, I hear that, and I think that you touched on a really important aspect of being able to comfortably go into those roles and those voices, and sort of those cadences, and to sort of slip into them without thinking too much or being too in your head about it, which is a major skill in improv.
Right.
And so, do you think that again, coming back to sort of like your background, you founded it's called the Purple Crayon, right?
Yeah.
Over at
Yeah.
Yale. And
Mhm.
you said y'all were just sort of like, this seems like the right thing to do, I guess. Like you didn't have a guidebook, you didn't have official, like any kind of official layout or what have you. So you were kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and you happen to find, I guess, was it your calling you think you found when you got into improv?
Well, I mean, honestly, luck sent me to Yale, and there I did plays, and I found a group of friends that led me to improv. Because there was a group of us that we all knew each other from doing plays, and we said, hey, let's try this improv thing. And we all just fell into it. And from that sense of community, I found this amazing skill. It's like, oh, we can just make stuff up. And, and there's also something about the relationship with the audience with improv. It's half like a sports audience. They're rooting for you,
Mhm.
Plus, they also know, you don't know how it's going to end. You don't know if you're going to win. You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like when you go to a sports, you're rooting for your team, but you don't know if they're going to make it, you know? So you lean forward and you're like, ooh, what's going on? You know, and there's something about that with improv. And, you know, it was interesting because, you know, everybody had different skills. Some people were good at physical stuff. Some people were great at words. And I had a really, you know, amazing group of people, like brilliant, you know, funny is the people that I, you know, was in that group when we first started. I think I am the only person of that original group who went into performing. The rest of them are like off saving the world as lawyers, doctors, you know, all sorts of stuff, you know, actually making, you know, the world a better place. But
Don't sell yourself short. No, you know, you listen. I gotta hype a little bit. I just gotta talk about myself a little bit here. I'd be a little narcissistic. I'm a pretty big Green Lantern fan.
Ah.
Literally got it tattooed on my hand.
Wow.
The reason that I'm a Green Lantern fan is in large part because of your portrayal of Jon Stewart, of seeing a character of color as a superhero, and that meant the world to me as a high school student, as a college student, and really resonated with me. So when you say make the world a better place, you got to remember, like you actually do. Entertainment matters.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words.
But no, the truth of the matter is, I didn't write the show, you know, but I was fortunate enough to be with people who not only were great creatively, but, you know, I had great expanded minds. I remember asking Bruce Timm when I first showed up for the first session, you know, because I was an old school comic book dude, you know, I knew Green Lantern was Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, sure, there are all these other, you know, purple lanterns and whatever, you know, and the backups, you know, but I remember when we auditioned, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, like, and I asked him, like, why did you pick Jon Stewart as the Green Lantern? Because that was the thing. Once we realized, you know, they were rewriting the comic book, you know, world, like in this, and they told us in this series, Jon Stewart is the Green Lantern of Earth. He's not a backup Green Lantern. He is the Green Lantern of Earth. And I said, why did you choose him? It's like, and it was funny because this is way before diversity and representation were on anybody's lips in television. And he said, I didn't want to make a show where 7 white people save the world every week.
Yo,
I thought that was boring.
That's awesome.
You know, and then you watch the series and you see just the levels and how it raises the game. Because, you know, you had Hawkgirl played by Maria Canals, who's a Latina.
Yeah.
You know, it's never mentioned. But then when the Thanagarian invasion happens in the Justice League series, spoilers, 15 years old. If you ain't watched it, you don't care.
Right?
When the Thanagarian invasion happened, all of the Thanagarians were played by Latinx actors.
Yeah.
And again, never mentioned, but it's there. It's there in the texture. There's something that ties them all together that separates them from the people, from the Earthlings.
Yeah.
And it just adds this level, this layer to it that, you know, it's brilliant. You know, you couldn't do that if you had just decided, oh, let's make this the one episode where we have someone of color. But when you put all of that into the mix from the start, you just have so much more to draw from, you know?
Yeah. It's not like that Super Friends. They just threw some 3 superheroes of color in like season 3 of Super Friends. Like, we got a black guy, we got a Spanish guy, we got an Asian guy now. We did it. We did diversity, guys.
Right. But again, like I said, diversity wasn't on anybody's mind.
Yeah.
You know, that was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to, like, they didn't even think they were doing anything special. Like, let's get one of each. You know.
Yeah. I want to run back to improv for a second because you work with the Groundlings, and I need to know what your favorite improv game is.
Wow. I have to be honest, I don't have a favorite improv game and it's funny because I've played with different improv groups, you know, for decades in different places. Actually, what was it, last year or the year before? I came out and did a weekend at Dad's Garage in Atlanta. And what I found is every improv group plays the same games with different names.
Yes.
No, we're freeze tag. We've never heard of freeze tag. We play stop, stop, freeze. Dude, it's the same thing. And basically, improv is it's the same principles, just in different forms. You know, you've got, you're going to agree, you're going to build, you're going to justify. What's the game? The game is sit down. The game is put it in alphabetical order, whatever. So, I mean, personally, I love great song improv. You know, there's a group I do perform with in LA called the Black Version. And we have some folks in our group who are some of the most amazing song improvisers I've ever heard. It's funny because people will sit there, throw out the suggestion, watch them sing the song, and go, did I hear that on the radio? Because it's so good, they can't believe they just made it up.
Musical
they
improv
made it up off of what you just said.
Yeah, musical improv is crazy. Like the level of talent it takes to be able to do that, not just carry a tune, but like make up a song as you go and then add to the song. Oh man. Yeah. I don't know if I'm an improviser too, so I just
cool. I figured.
So when you were when you were working or on in Hollywood, you did a little bit of work. You did Pulp Fiction. I'm sure a lot of folks have hopefully have seen that if they're old enough in the audience. You had a little part in Step Brothers, which was hysterical. I do love the scene in which they all code switched for you, and you're like, "Hey man, I'm just here to look at a house."
Yeah, really, you don't need to. Yeah, Adam Scott is hilarious.
So is there more on-screen work you're looking to do? Is there anything up in the works coming up that you can talk about outside of an NDA or?
Let me see. Is there any on-screen stuff? Well, right now there's very little on-screen stuff happening.
Fair.
And no, I don't have anything, in the bank. The last on-camera part I did, actually, well, I did a small part in a pilot called Today's Special, but we just found out it didn't get picked up. But before that, I did about 6 episodes of Supergirl. This was earlier this season. They just had the Supergirl season finale Sunday, and that was a lot of fun. The funniest thing about that was it was a voiceover gig at first, and then it turned into an on-camera gig.
Really?
Yeah, because these CW shows are incredible. They're doing stuff every week that little nerds like me used to dream about in the 70s and 80s. Like, what if somebody actually flew? Because back then, the special effects in movies weren't that good. You couldn't do a superhero movie.
No.
Now they're doing it on TV. But they had John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, his evil brother, Malefak, was a CG alien.
On TV?
Yeah. So they brought me in to voice the alien.
I was doing the evil Martian.
And then they said, you know what? We're going to have him take on a human form. You want to come up to Vancouver and play it?
Yo.
Yes, I do.
No, I'll pass.
Nah, hire somebody else and I'll just dub it in.
Oh man, that's awesome. So your nerd credentials go back to when you were a kid. What was it like being a blurred when you were young, back when before it was cool? Because being a black nerd, it had a certain stigma, I feel like, and like I felt a little outcast in certain communities. Like for a lot of
it's funny because I'm gonna sound like the old dude in a minute, but like, well, one, blurred wasn't not even a word. It wasn't a concept.
Right.
What we consider blurs now, back then, was a brother with a book.
Fair. Okay. Fair.
Like the old Chris Rock thing.
You want to keep your money? Hide it in books.
Because the thing was, like, culturally speaking, books, Dungeons and Dragons, comic books, nerd, sci-fi, you know, none of that was for us, you know, and part of that was, that's where it seemed to be, you know, it's like, oh, there's one Black person on the Enterprise. Oh gosh, okay. You know, part of it seemed to be from the outside, but it was also coming from the inside. It's like, why are you reading all that stuff? What's that about? Why don't you keep it real? It's like, I'm keeping it real interesting.
Yeah.
You know? And it was culturally not looked well upon. So I think, you know, I think a lot of us who were into that stuff kept it on down low, you know? They would rather you be kissing a boy than, you know, reading a comic book, you know, back then.
That's
now, of course,
Black community too.
Yeah. And now, of course, you know, nerddom is mainstream, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think we're probably just a couple steps away from the blurred thing no longer existing, because eventually, you know, the same way that hip hop is now pop, you know, it's going to be, it's like, well, you don't have to say you're a Black nerd anymore. I'm hoping we'll get to that point.
Me too,
like,
man.
You know, what you are into, whatever you're into, you know. Actually, I guess the weird thing is, I don't know which part is going to go first, the blah or the erd.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to your point, there's a lot of progress being made in the arena of normalizing people liking things, which is insane that we have to normalize that, but I'm glad it's happening. But I feel there's still a long way to go. Like, you had that one sketch on Mad TV, the Black History Minute, absolutely killed me. Bro, when I say, like, I was crying laughing, like I was crying laughing. I was also like crying a little bit too, because I was like, why is this still relevant? But I think laughter is so important in just sort of the growth, development, and healing of a community. And
oh, definitely. And the progress of society, because in order to laugh at something, you got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, to understand a joke, you got to listen. So, and that laughter can help break down walls and help people open up to new things they might not have listened to or looked at or paid attention to, you know. And progress is slow, but it is steady, you know. I mean, it's funny because I'll talk to, you know, young actors and performers of color who are still, you know, it's like, God, we're so far to go. I'm like, yeah, but we've come a long way. Just in the time that I've been doing this for a living, there's been, I mean, and nobody believes me, but when I was starting out, I was going out for gang leader parts and getting them.
This book nerd from LA is like, I'm gonna be a gang leader today. All right.
Right. And I got cast. You know? One, because those were the only roles that were around. And two, because the people making the decisions had no vision. It's like, he's darker than a paper bag. He looks like a gang member to me. You're in.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point, that we've seen a lot more diversity in roles for actors of color. We're sort of in, like, I like to call it Harlem Renaissance 2.0. This time it's national.
Well, it's funny because I got into a thing on Facebook. What was it, last year? The woman who was the lead on Fresh Off the Boat. Like, the show got picked up for a new season, and she tweeted something about, like, "Ah, dang it." She had to go back to her TV job. And people said, how dare she? She should be happy to. And what I heard when they all said that was what they said to every performer of color before diversity was a concept. And it's sometimes what we said to ourselves and to each other. Man, you should be happy you got cast as that gang member. Don't worry about they want you to grab your crotch, you know, just take the check, you know. But the thing is, we're moving to a place where it's not just about be happy with whatever scraps you can get. And my thing was, for Constance Wu, it's like, she is living in a time, the only time in modern Western civilization where it is possible for an Asian woman to be a dang movie star.
Bruh.
So she can be bent out of shape because she got to go back to her TV show.
Yes. Yes. Oh,
It's the
man.
first time ever. It's like, I could go be Scarlett Johansson now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Freudian slip.
Oh, Jesus. Have you seen that same kind of openness and diversity now translate over into the voice acting community? Has there been more roles for voice actors of color to sort of expand out and not just be, thug number 3, but
Yeah.
actually?
Oh, definitely. And I think it started in voiceover. I don't know if it was ahead of time. I mean, but usually what happens is those sort of things start in kids programming first, because people are more conscious of the messages they're sending to children. So I think we did Static Shock back in 99 or 2000. And that was the first time an African-American teenage was the lead of a superhero show. It wasn't the first time there was an African-American animated lead, but it was probably pretty early on, that those things, they were still rare. Now, I'm working on a show on Cartoon Network called Craig the Creek, which is about Craig, who is a young African-American boy and his family, but it's not about the fact that he's African-American.
Right.
It's about this little boy, so, my homie Dwayne McDuffie, who I worked with, who created Milestone Comics, where Static came from, and he was a producer and writer on Justice League. He died, unfortunately, way too soon. Mm-hmm. And we did an award in his honor, the Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics. And the motto is from invisibility to inevitability, and that's what we're looking at. It comes from a point where these characters of color are invisible. They're not even there. Then you get a drop in a bucket, you get one in a group of 6, and then you move to a point where the story is about them, it becomes a narrative that reflects all of these different viewpoints. And that's pretty much where we are now. I don't know if we're quite all the way there, but you look around and I think pretty much everybody can find some sort of creative, programming or content that represents some part of their point of view. That is a huge, huge progress.
Yeah. I mean, did you see Spider-Verse? I'm assuming yes.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's exactly what you're talking about, man. Like there are very few movies that make me cry. And that one I have seen, I think 6 times. And I've cried at that movie 6 times just because of the power of that relationship between Miles and his father. Just the way that they can't communicate through that door, man. That scene ruins me. And to your point, man, like you just see that media and you're looking at something that doesn't just speak to your experience or to you, but it's looking at you in the eyes and saying, hey, let me talk to you for a second.
Well, and what's wonderful about it, it's hilarious because I look at Black Panther, which was amazing.
Yes.
And I look at Spider-Verse and they're what, 2 years apart?
I think something like that.
Yeah. That is 20 years of programming progress.
Yeah.
From when we did Black Somebody, and a story about him being black and very black, not black. Everything is black in this black story. So that everybody knows this is about blackness, to this other story, which is equally fantastic, equally moving, about a character of color, but not about his color.
Yeah.
And the goal is to be able to do all of those all the time, to be doing some shows, about the lead being disabled, some shows where the lead just is disabled, and he's a CIA hitman.
Did you just pitch a show? We're to writing. Let's get to writing right now. This is a little bit of shift here, but you are a D&D nerd.
Yes, I was playing D&D first edition. I remember when they came out with books that were actually hardbound. I'm like, oh my God, I got to save up all my allowance.
Listen, the first edition, second edition books make no sense. AD&D makes, I don't know how you did THAC0 and tables. I have no idea how you could put up with that.
The world moved a lot slower back then, Andres.
Who was your first D&D character? I'm curious if you remember who your first one was.
Well, I don't know. This guy was probably not my first one, but this was my first good one. First one that didn't die. The first one I was able to like build up.
Right, get past level 2 as a wizard.
Right.
Survived.
I had a fighter named Balthazar. I don't know. Right. I don't remember where the name came from, but I know I no, there were no apostrophes in it. So. But that was my main character was Balthazar. And so yeah, we're playing D&D after school and stuff, and then I think theater sort of took over, and then puberty hit, and then I just didn't have the brain space. Well, actually, there were girls in the plays. There were no girls in my D&D group.
See, that's changing now. That's actually the cool thing is I think this the whole of geekdom and nerd culture is shifting towards inclusivity.
Yes.
And it's been remarkable. My D&D group that I run has 3 women in it, actually. So that's, yeah. Listen, I don't know if you could tell I'm very selfish in my question asking. It is all about but I wanted to segue into Goblins Animated. You're working as a producer, as a voice actor, a lot of hats on that project. What has been one of the biggest lessons you've learned through that process?
The biggest lesson I've learned is vet the people you're working with before you give them the money. Because we sort of we had something that we knew was good and we were in love with it, and we said, let's just go. And it's funny because I have people come and say, hey, I want to do a thing. And I always say, stop, think, learn, plan. And I realized, oh, we didn't do that. We thought about the aspects that we knew. I said, oh, I'm going to call Billy West and Maurice LaMarche and Jim Cummings and Jennifer Hale and Tara Strong. We're going to, and they've all agreed to do voices for us. I didn't stop and think, oh, why don't I call the folks that I've worked on in animation for these last 20 years, the animators, the directors, because one, I didn't know how the cartoon side worked. Yeah. And I didn't take the time to learn that until we were, $100,000 into it. Like, oh, I really should find out what this person who's charging us this money is talking about, and we went through a lot of ups and downs. One of my partners had to be airlifted to the hospital for brain surgery 5 days after we closed our crowdfunding. We had a lot of bumps in the road, but we finally got some animation back. We're slowly, piecing it together. And then of course this happened right after we got our animation delivered from overseas. But we're hopeful that we should have, something to show our backers very soon, and something that we can show to networks or streaming services or whatever, even sooner than that.
Yeah, I'm hoping it gets picked up, because the project, it caught my interest when I started researching it, and I was like, this is a beautiful concept. I can't tell you how many monsters have become friendly NPCs because of I have a party that talks. So
do you DM?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
The voices, everything in my head, yeah, the improv, all that stuff. Nice. We actually just finished a 2-year campaign, and I had to reveal to my players that about 60% of our campaign was improv.
And then after they left for the night, you were like, I gotta fix this. I gotta change that thing that I thought I was gonna get to.
Right? Oh my God. I would write down like, okay, they talked to this guy that I didn't think they would talk to. He needs a little bit of a backstory now, I guess. And I made up this character and this voice, and I guess this is a thing now. And they like this person will talk to them again. So yeah, it's DMing is a beautiful chore.
Ooh, it's such a chore. But for the folks who are watching who don't know, Goblins Animated is a animated project I'm working on that's based on the Goblins webcomic by Ellipsis Stevens, and it's basically a D&D campaign. It's based on a D&D campaign, a real campaign that they had for an ongoing campaign, and as DM, she built so much of a world. She thought, let me take these characters farther down these other roads. But also, it was built around the concept of you've got the heroes, you've got the adventurers, and you've got the monsters that they deal with. What do the monsters think is going on? And so Goblins is a story of a group of like low-level monsters tired of getting their asses kicked by first-level players on their way to the dungeon. They decide, well, why don't we become adventurers? And so that way we can pick classes, go up in levels, get magic weapons, and defend our goblin village.
Imagine a goblin paladin.
It's that story.
Yeah. I heard you slip into a voice there. I feel like every voice actor or even improviser has voices going in their head all the time, will slip accidentally into a character. Is there a character that you do that, like, when you come home and that accidentally comes out, your family just wants you to stop or go away or
Well, I don't know if it's because I'm lazy or I'm greedy, but I don't work unless I'm getting paid. And my family ain't paying, so they ain't getting it for free. No, actually, it's funny. The voices I'll slip into are more likely to be somebody else's characters than my own.
Really?
Y'all slipping a Chris Rock. Look at that.
I cannot with that. I cannot with that. That's I do some impressions, and just hearing that one, I'm like, I don't want to do impressions ever again.
When I was on Mad TV, my friend Nicole Sullivan and I would do these Antonia sketches. Sometimes at home, somebody asks something, it's like, do you know? It's like, I don't know. It is possible. I like slip into her character for no good reason.
Well, we got some questions from the audience. Wanted to make sure that we had a chance to address some things that are happening in the chat. I'm going to go through. We have Victor was kind enough to curate a few questions for us and queue up here in the chat. We've got from KRAR 101, KRAR 101. Which character do you enjoy portraying the most, Aquaman or Kotal Khan?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I enjoy playing Aquaman more in Injustice because he got that stabbing thing.
But there's something wonderful about playing the King of Atlantis. Atlantis will not bow before you, Superman.
But Kotal Khan, come on, man, he turns into a jaguar.
And I love the fact that there is that Incan, Aztec kind of feel to him.
Plus, he's 8 feet tall, and he's rocking them headdresses. So, and I don't know, maybe it's also a little ego. I'm the only one who has voiced Kotal Khan, so that's my voice. Aquaman, he's one of those legacy characters that you share, with so many other people. But I mean, to be honest, I enjoy, playing them because I get to play them in great stuff. I get to play Aquaman in Injustice, also on Young Justice, and getting to be in Mortal Kombat. I mean, that's just like a dream,
Man, I just thought about something. My dad's favorite superhero is Aquaman. My dad
Really?
loves swimming. Yeah, black dude from Boston. Aquaman's his favorite superhero. Loves swimming. I know, but I need to play him some of your voice clips and be like, by the way, Aquaman's black now. Don't tell anybody.
Well, actually, that's funny because when I auditioned for Young Justice, at first I auditioned for Aqualad. And they showed the picture, and he was Black Aqualad. I'm like, oh, he's not the little in the red and the blue. Okay, we're doing something cool, And then I didn't get it. Kari Payton got it because he was amazing.
He's incredible. I will say, Kari's
anything, comedy, drama, animation on camera, all of it.
Yeah.
And then they called and said, well, would you want to play Aquaman? And said, I'm like, oh, I'm going to play Black Aquaman. It's like, no, same Aquaman. Like, oh, okay. Black Aqualad, not Black Aquaman.
All right, we got a question from TDGT 2014. So that's a name. But he says, speaking of Chris Rock, this is from a while ago. What did you think of voicing Chris and Ozzy and Drix?
Well, I've actually doubled for Chris or taken over a character for him a bunch of times now. I did the Marty the Zebra for the Madagascar game, and also, but the first one was Ozzy and Drix because he voiced Osmosis Jones in the movie of the same name, and it was one of those bad 90s, early 2000 decisions where they're trying like, let's mix cartoons and real people, but we don't really have the technology yet. Oops.
Bill Murray in it. Put Molly Shannon in there. I don't know.
Well, they had Bill Murray and Chris Rock, and nobody went to see it. That's tough.
Yeah, I went to Blockbuster. That's what. Oh my God! Sorry, flashback.
But then they decided this would make a better cartoon than a live action movie, and so we did the cartoon version, and it was me and Jeff Bennett taking over for Chris Rock and David Hyde Pierce, and it was fun. It was hard, especially when you're taking over for somebody that famous, who everybody thinks they know exactly how he sounds. They keep telling you whether you're doing it right. When you're just making up a character that you create, people are like, oh, okay, good. It was like, it's a little higher. Yeah, give him a little more, But the funny thing is, on an ongoing series, eventually they will write something that when I do it, it's like, and they're reading the script and says, Ozzy begins to cry. Like, cut. Phil, it doesn't really sound like Ozzy. It's like, and I'm thinking to myself, no, it doesn't sound like Chris Rock, because you ain't never heard Chris Rock cry. And if Chris Rock was doing this part, you wouldn't hear him cry, because he goes, you know what? This isn't funny. What if instead of him crying, he just get real mad? And they would go, yes, Mr. Rock, we'll do that instead, and rewrite the whole script.
Yeah.
So there becomes a point where it stops being an impression of Chris Rock and becomes Ozzy, you know? And that's always the challenge with, when you're take over a character from somebody else. Eventually it becomes yours.
So we got a couple of Samurai Jack questions. I'm going to try to fuse these into one. So LPB, the actor, recently watched season 1 of Samurai Jack, and they're enjoying it so far. They want to know what it took for you to play Jack. And then there was a follow-up question by someone else later that I scrolled past, but they were asking what it felt like to finish the show out alongside the showrunners, and really, and finally.
Yeah. Well, Samurai Jack is one of those opportunities that comes along once in a career if you're incredibly lucky. And the fact that I got to do it with Gendy Tartakovsky when he was first when he first created it was a godsend. I mean, what it took to do it was restraint, because it was this show that was full of action, but Gendy kept telling me, he's like, less. He is so well trained.
That's an interesting note.
There is no effort. It's funny because for all the action and you go and listen to it, there's not a lot of Jack doesn't do all that. Jack doesn't pant. Jack doesn't, every once in a while he'll do an attack yell if he's like, oh, cool, but very rarely. Yeah. And so it was mostly about keeping everything contained and restrained. No matter what is happening, no matter how much action is happening on screen, Jack himself stays calm. And that was, a great, learning experience, because, especially in animation, you realize, I've always known. I'm showing it about me. You know, voicing an animated character, you are at most a third of what makes that character special. There's the voice, there's the animation, and there's the writing. And all three of them together are what make the characters that you guys love. No one of them by themselves is enough. And especially on Samurai Jack, there are some episodes where I may not have even spoken at all. You know,
It's high art.
because it was, and there was so much visual and just sound effects. Everything was involved in telling the story. And then to be able to come back 14 years after we, stopped doing it, so that Gendy could go to the Clone Wars micro series. Very few people know that George Lucas killed Samurai Jack.
That series was incredible, though.
But to come back 14, right, to come back and to be able to do that final season, because we had to, the story needed an ending. I mean, it says right there in the dang song, got to get back, he's got to get back, know?
Yes.
By the way, the theme song to Samurai Jack, Black Eyed Peas.
No, sir.
Nobody knows that. I don't know why.
That's wild. I had no idea.
And I was so amazed, because to me, that final season, that fifth season, is basically what the show might have evolved into had it run that whole time. It was darker, more mature. It went to a brand new place, and you saw a completely new side of that character, and it gave you closure. It gave us a resolution. It gave us the whole story. I mean, there's a big gap in the middle. And Gendy said he's open to, having that, period in between. Maybe somebody will Clone Wars Samurai Jack and fill in the gaps with something, We'll
just make a movie. We'll just have to call Gendy, get a Samurai Jack movie set in the gap, and we'll all go to the theaters to see it. There was here we go. Empty Bomb 96 wants to know if there was a role that you found a lot of difficulty in portraying, either because where you need to place your voice or because of the emotion you need to portray for it.
Actually, there was, during that final season of Samurai Jack, it wasn't overall the most challenging, but because I love the character so much, I felt, and also it had been so long, I felt a lot of weight to make sure, one, that I stayed true to the original character, but also explored this really heavy stuff that we were, going through in the final season. And I remember I had a video game session in the morning, and then the Samurai Jack session in the evening, in the afternoon, and it was really emotional. It was I think it was the scene where the angry Jack in his head confronts him and tries to get him to end his own life. So there was some heavy, heavy emotional stakes, 2 characters, and I was really afraid that the video game session was going to blow out my voice.
Yeah.
So I think it was actually the fear that made it difficult. I need to be able to be my best, but I also have this other job that is also my obligation. But I do remember, I can't yell again. You guys got to take the one that you got.
Yeah, you spent 4 hours pretending to get, now you're being hit by a shovel, and now you're being hit by a sharp shovel.
Right.
Now you're being hit by a sharp shovel with a knife at the end. Not the knife side, the shovel side still.
And now it's an electrified shovel.
Can we do one more on that?
Yeah.
So, Liahime, Princess, got it. Said, "Hey Phil, I saw your name in the additional voices for Frozen 2. Are you hidden in any more Disney movies?"
Well, not hidden. I actually, although it's funny because we just did additional voice stuff for Frozen, did the same thing for Incredibles 2. Just went in there to be part of the, background stuff, but wound up voicing a couple of characters.
I did Kraushauer, the man the big superhero who crushes things.
And then he says, "Hey, can't you uncrush it?"
What is uncrush? There's no uncrush. Anybody ever ask you to unpunch something?
You know. But I wasn't supposed to originally voice that character. But when we got there, you know, Brad Bird had originally voiced. He's like, "I don't like what I'm doing. Can a couple of you guys give it a try?" And they liked my version of it, and so they put it in the movie.
Man, a lot of really cool, like lucky break kind of little things. A little lucky, just
yeah.
But you're in the right place at the right time, and that happens because of talent. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. Got another question here from another one from KR 101. If you could choose to live in any universe of the characters you voiced, where would you live and why?
Wow. That's, I don't know. What universe?
I mean, you've only got 8,000 roles, so it's.
I know. I'm like, do I want to be the Jedi, or or do I want to live Samurai Jack, but like after he destroyed Aku and cleared the timeline? You know, then I'm just in ancient Japan. That ain't that cool. Ozzy and Drix, no. Then I'd be living inside somebody's body. That's no fun, especially these days.
Oh my God, yeah. Could you imagine an Ozzy and Drix set during these unprecedented
Drix, we ain't got no time to sleep, man. It's coronavirus. We got to get out there. Look, somebody's about to sneeze. We're going to go from him to that other dude who ain't got no damn mask on. We're going to save his worthless ass.
Oh my God, I just want to do an improv scene for the rest of the 5 minutes, but we have more questions. So someone says, speaking of Spider-Man, this is, I think, back to when we were talking about Miles Morales. What was it like to be Spider-Man 2?
Oh, yeah. That was right after I left Mad TV. And it was, again, like not a big role. I'd auditioned for a different role, the Hal Sparks, the guy in the elevator who says, "Nice suit." I auditioned for that and didn't get it. But then they called like 2 months later and said, "Hey, is Phil available to come shoot on the movie? It's 2 days." I'm like, "Oh, what's the part? We can't tell you." Okay, well, what scene is he in? We can't tell you. Can you send a script? Absolutely not. Okay. I'm like, comic book head. I'm like, I got a chance to be in a Spider-Man movie. I can't say no. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just going to be like a background extra. It was like, ask them if I'm definitely going to work with Sam Raimi. And they said, yes. I'm like, okay, good. So I wound up with no lines, but I spent 2 weeks on that movie. I met Tobey Maguire, who was amazing. And the suits back then were not as cool as what they got on all the CW shows now. Tobey was glued into that mess from 6 a.m. till lunch. Oh. They had to open him up so he could pee and eat, then glue his ass back in for the rest of the day. So hey, brother earned his $20 million.
And his hopefully appearance in the new Spider-Verse movie. I really hope they get to do that. I got a question for you now. I'm thinking about it. I always talk to my friends about. I talk to a lot of people about this concept that food is one of the most important aspects of culture. It shares when you cook a meal for someone, you're sharing their story, you're sharing your heritage, and you're putting care and effort into taking care of someone else. You're serving someone. So this is a two-parter then. What's your favorite meal from childhood? And if you were hosting a dinner party, what would you for friends? What would you cook?
Favorite meal from childhood. Well, actually, the answer to both is breakfast. Eggs and rice and Eggo waffles was my Saturday morning. Like, yes, that's my thing. Scrambled eggs with little rice in there, and then an Eggo waffle dripping with syrup. As to what I would cook, well, the only thing I know how to cook is breakfast. So, but my waffles would be made from scratch, not
Ooh.
egg.
So
I got my big old waffle iron. I'm red. You know.
So you're like a crispy exterior Belgian waffle kind of guy. Got to have the nice like crunch to them.
If I walk into a restaurant and all they got is Belgian waffles, I walk the hell out. I'm not about no damn pre-made frozen Belgian waffle. I want something made with fresh batter on a griddle right then. And whenever you go with Belgian waffles, ain't nobody making no damn waffles. There ain't no waffle iron in that kitchen.
Waffle iron is a very specified piece of equipment. Not every kitchen wants to keep that in stock, but when they do, and they make
you're gonna find me eating there.
And they make the chicken and waffles. Oh my God, it kills me. Yeah. All right, I think that actually, crap, it's 11 o'clock Eastern time now.
Oh wow, yo, you guys are up late. I'm on the West Coast. I haven't even eaten dinner yet.
Well, everyone already took the time off from work, and if they didn't take the time off, they're not working anyway, because it's a horrible time to be trying to be employed. So I guess we've got time. Yeah. And thank you for making the time. Really appreciate it. This has been wonderful to get a chance to speak with you and hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just so sad that because of this pandemic, we weren't able to actually have the real physical MomoCon, but at least we got to make a little bit of connection like this, And
a Zoom background.
Right. You're all here.
All right, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I don't know. I think the tech team is just going to cut me off at some point. So thank you all so much for coming out. And Phil, thank you again for being a fantastic guest.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to meet you, man.
You too.